pizza.com or fatcow.com, or there are thousands of such web hosting services on the internet. So you find your own web space somewhere and you upload index.php and record.php to that server. And then you send a link to the index.php file to your friend or to the victim. And as soon as the victim clicks on that link, they will be taken to the fake login screen of Facebook. So if all of you look at the screen, the bottom part is the fake login screen of Facebook. So they will think that they have been taken to the real login screen of Facebook. And they will enter the username password like I have done right now. Username is Ankit Fadia and password is something else. And I click on login. So I think that the username password is going to Facebook, but actually it will go to record.php and it will be saved somewhere on the criminal server. So when the user clicks on the login button, he will be automatically redirected to the Facebook website, and he will think that some error in communication may have occurred. So that's the best part of this attack. After you have stolen the username password of the victim, you automatically redirect the user to facebook.com. And how does that happen? Using that text or using the code for record.php. Record.php. So that automatically redirects the users to facebook.com after the username password has been stolen. Now in the meantime, if you log into your web server, you will notice that there is a new file that has been created, passwords.txt. Passwords.txt. So I open that file, and this is what I'll see inside that file. And inside that file, it has recorded my username, that is Ankit Fadia, and my password, which is Facebook password 123. As simple as that. So that is how you can steal somebody else's username and password by creating a fake login screen, uploading that fake login screen to your website along with another PHP file, create a link to the fake login screen and send it to the victim. Victim clicks on that link, goes to the fake login screen, thinks that he's connected to the real website, but in reality it's not the real website, it's the fake login screen. He enters the username password thinking that it's going to the real website, but actually the username password comes over here in a notepad file called passwords.txt. So what happened over here? I'll quickly repeat this whole thing so that we understand exactly what happens in a phishing attack. So step number 1 was we just go to facebook.com and we are trying to copy the source code of facebook.com login screen. So I just right click anywhere, click on view page source. So once the source code has been displayed on the screen, I select all of it and I copy the source code. So Control A, Control C, and I paste it into a notepad file. And once I pasted the source code, so up until now, we have just copied the source code of facebook.com into notepad. That's all we have done. But normally the source code of the login screen will send the victim's username password to facebook.com. But we don't want that to happen. We want the username password. Instead of going to Facebook, we want it to come to us. So now what we are going to do is do that. We search for action equal to, and we make 2 changes. Instead of method is equal to post, we change it to method is equal to get. So that's one change. And secondly, after action equal to, there is some URL. We change that URL to record.php. So what essentially this new code is going to do is, when the victim types in the username password, according to the old code, username password will go to facebook.com/login.php. But now, the username password goes to record.php, which is a local file on that same server. And what is that record.php file? In the next step, we create that. So this is the PHP code that we create or type into a blank notepad file, and we save that notepad file as record.php. And the code that we type is pretty straightforward. It essentially creates, so if you look at the third line of the code, the f open, that basically means create a new file called passwords.txt, and then the next few lines, f write, essentially is going to write the username and password that was received by record.php from index.php. So that's what this particular file is essentially doing. So now you upload both index.php and record.php to your own web server, create a link to index.php and send it to the victim. If the victim falls for it, clicks on the link, the victim thinks that they have been taken to a real login screen, and they'll enter the username password thinking that it's going to Facebook or Gmail or Hotmail or whatever, but actually the username password comes to record.php, which will then redirect the user to facebook.com's real website. So if you notice, look at the screen now, I've actually been redirected to the real website of facebook.com. But in the back end, that record.php file will also create a text file called passwords.txt, which is stored in the same folder where we saved index.php and record.php on my web hosting server or my web space. And when I open that password file or text file, it has my username and password stored in it. As simple as that. So that is how you can create a fake login screen for Facebook. Similarly, you can create a fake login screen for Gmail as well. So I'll quickly go through the steps. It's pretty much the same thing. And after that, I'll give you a demonstration of phishing attacks as well. So how to create a fake login screen for Gmail. So you got to repeat the process to get the source code of the Gmail login screen and change the method from post to get and the action to record.php. So everything else remains the same. I first go to gmail.com, log out from my account, right click anywhere, click on view source. The source code of Gmail login screen will get displayed. I press Ctrl A, that is select all, then Ctrl C, that is copy all, then paste it into a new notepad file, and within the notepad file I make two changes. Instead of method is equal to post, I change it to method is equal to get, and then instead of action equal to google.com something, I change it to record.php. Now I send the phishing URL to the victim. Victim enters the username password thinking that they're going to Gmail, but actually they're sent to record.php. And record.php will create a new passwords.txt file, and inside that the username and password has now been displayed right at the bottom. It says email is equal to Ankit Fadia and password is equal to testing Gmail password 123. As simple as that. So at this point of time, I like to show you how you can actually create or execute a phishing attack using Backtrack. So like I had promised, I think 3-4 lectures ago, from now on every lecture at least I'll try to, wherever applicable, wherever possible, I'll try my best to show you some kind of backtrack. So the backtrack that I like to kind of show you today is how to execute a phishing attack using Backtrack. So let me open up Backtrack on my computer. So in Backtrack, there is a very interesting software called Social Engineering Toolkit. In other words, it's known as SET. SET, which stands for Social Engineering Toolkit. So how to open that? I click on Applications, backtrack, exploitation tools, social engineering tools, social engineering toolkit, and then SET. So if all of you look at the screen, this is what the social engineering toolkit looks like. So it gives you various options. So it says select from the menu. So if you want social engineering attacks, you have to press 1. Fast track penetration testing 2. Third party modules means 3, and so on. So right now I'm going to select 1, which is social engineering attacks. Next, it again gives me various options of what kind of attacks I can execute. So I want to actually execute a website attack. So I'm going to select 2. Now it is again giving me various types of website attacks that I can execute. So I want to execute a phishing attack, which is often also known as credential harvester attack method. So I select 3. Now it is asking me whether I want to clone an existing website or whether I want to create or use a template to create a fake login screen. So I think it's always better to clone an existing website. So let me select 2, site cloner option. It is now asking me to enter the IP address of my own computer where the username password should be sent. So I open up a new terminal window in Backtrack and I type the command ifconfig, press enter. And if you notice, my IP address has been displayed. It's 192.168.27.128. So let me go ahead and type that. So I type 192.168.27.128, press enter. Now it is asking me to enter the URL that I wish to clone. Now the website that I want to clone is gmail.com. So let me type www.gmail.com. Press enter. It is saying cloning the website gmail.com. This could take a little bit. And now the Gmail website has been cloned. So now if I want to steal my friend's username password, I need to ask my friend to visit my own computer's IP address. So I create a link, which is essentially a link like the following. So let me just verify the IP address. So 192.168.27.128. So this is the IP address that I'll send to my friend. And I'll ask my friend to visit this particular IP address. Right? So when my friend opens their browser and connects to this IP address, let us see what happens. Hopefully this works. Okay, it does not always work. So if all of you look at the screen, when my friend has opened his browser and connected to that link, it says Google, one account, all of Google, sign in to continue to Gmail. And the login screen looks exactly like what the Gmail login screen normally looks like. So my friend will type in the email address. So let's assume the email address is Ankit Fadia. And he types in the password. What should the password be? Let's assume the password is AFCEH123 test. Right? And my friend clicks on sign in. So if all of you look at the screen, what happened? My friend was actually redirected to gmail.com. If you look at the URL, it is accounts.google.com. So my friend was redirected to the real Gmail website. So my friend thinks that acha, koi problem hoga, there may be some error in connection. So he types his username again. And he types in his real password and clicks on sign in, and he's able to log into his account. So he won't even think more than a few seconds about what happened. But actually, if I go back to the attacker's computer and open up the social engineering toolkit, a lot of things have happened. So in the social engineering toolkit, look at the output or the log data that has been recorded. It says that we have got a hit printing the output. And the output is the following. It says possible username has been found, and the username is Ankit Fadia. And the possible password has also been found, which is AFCH123 test. As simple as that. So we have successfully managed to find out my friend's username and password. My friend thinks that he connected to the Gmail login screen, and he thinks that there was some error, and I was automatically redirected to the real Gmail website, and I entered the username password and everything was fine. But what they don't realize, the victim does not realize, is that along the way, the username and password was stolen. That is the beauty of social engineering toolkit. Let us try one more example. So once again, I open up social engineering toolkit. I press the 3 button to enter the credential harvester attack method. I once again do a site clone. The IP address where I want the information to be sent back is my own IP. And the website I want to clone is facebook.com. So it's saying this will take a few minutes, and it has successfully cloned facebook.com. So now you send the same link to your friend. Your friend clicks on that link, 192.168.27.128. If you notice, it still says Gmail. I don't know why it's saying Gmail. Because the IP address was wrong. If you look at the IP address, I mistyped it. So I may have to just exit this and start this again. So give me a second. Well, I quickly restart backtrack. Because I entered the wrong IP address, it would just unnecessarily create a conflict. I want to show you the fake login screen of Facebook as well. And then we'll be done with this particular demonstration. So just give me a minute while backtrack restarts. When all of you are doing this, I would highly recommend that you use backtrack from a pen drive. As opposed to VMware. The reason being that if you use backtrack in VMware, then the IP address where the thing has been hosted is not a publicly shareable IP. So you cannot just send that IP to your friend, and when they click on that link, they'll not be able to see the Facebook login screen. So only if it is a public IP will this work. So try to use the ISO version of backtrack if you want to host a phishing page on your system. So my backtrack is almost started. Let's just wait. Alright, so now that backtrack has started, I once again click on Applications, Backtrack, exploitation tools, social engineering tools, social engineering toolkit, and SET. And when I click on SET, again SET opens up. I type 1 to select social engineering attacks. Then I select website attack vector by typing 2. Then I select credential harvester attack method by typing 3. It's very self-explanatory. Now instead of cloning a website, so for the Gmail example, I cloned a website. But instead of cloning a website, you can also use a web template. So for Facebook, let me select web template. So I type 1. Now it is asking me to enter the IP address where I want the username password to come back. So I open up a new terminal window and I type ifconfig, and my IP address has been mentioned here. So let me type that IP 192.168.27.128. Press enter, and now it is asking me which website would I like to clone. So there is 71 is the permitted sender. So typically the first IP address that you find from the bottom part of the email header, by eliminating one by one each and every line that does not have an IP address, you can find out the IP address of the sender. So in this case, chances are that the email that I received has been sent from this IP address, that is 176.32.105.71. As simple as that. Please remember, a disclaimer here is that this technique is not 100% accurate, but it is a shortcut technique. Anybody can do this. Within a few minutes, you can find out the IP address of the person who sent that email to you. And once you have the IP address, you can trace an IP address to its location. And later on today, in today's lecture, we'll be discussing how to trace an IP address to its location. But right now, we have just concluded the demonstration of if somebody sends an email to you, if it's an abusive email, you want to find out who sent that email to you. So this is what you need to do to find out the IP address of the sender. Even if it is not an abusive email. Let's assume your friend sent an email to you. You want to find out your friend's IP address because you want to hack into their computer. Even then, this technique that I just demonstrated to you is very useful. Because by just analyzing the email headers, you can find out the IP address of the sender. As simple as that. So you can do this in Gmail, which I just gave a demonstration to you of. At the same time, you can do this in Yahoo as well. Just click on settings and then full header. And if you notice, the full header of the email has been displayed on the screen. I have included a screenshot for all of you. Now this was the manual technique of analyzing an email header. There is an automatic technique as well. And for the automatic technique, you need to download a software called Email Tracker Pro. Email Tracker Pro. Email Tracker Pro is a software that you can download from the internet. It is not free, but you can download the trial version, which allows you to use it for 15 days or so, completely free of cost. And the way this Email Tracker Pro software works is, once you open the email headers, you copy the email headers and you paste the email headers into this particular software. And you press the trace button. And as soon as you press the trace button, this particular software will analyze the email headers for you and find out the IP address of the sender and trace the location of that person and display it on the screen. So if you notice, I have a screenshot which I like to show to all of you. In this screenshot, in the center of the screen, you can see a world map. And in that world map, the exact location of the sender has been identified. So this particular email was sent to me from Bucharest in Romania. Left bottom corner of the screen, the IP address of the person who sent this email to me has been identified. So the IP address is 92.86.139.90. And on the right hand side, it says, gives me the location as well. So the email started in Bucharest or originated in Bucharest, then it went to Germany, then Switzerland, and slowly in various cities from Zurich in Switzerland went to Geneva in Switzerland, and slowly it reached the recipient, that is me in Mumbai. So the email was sent from Bucharest, it traveled through various email servers in Europe, in Germany, in Switzerland, and then it came to India and it reached my system. So not only can you find out the origin of the email, you can find out the path taken by the email to reach you. And on the right hand side column, more information about the sender has been identified. See the IP address that you're seeing on the left bottom corner, that is 92.86.139.90. That IP address normally will belong to a ISP, a service provider, like say Reliance or Airtel or whatever, but in Romania. So on the right hand side column, you can find out what ISP this IP address belongs to. So in this case, if you notice very carefully on the right hand side column, it has identified that this particular IP address belongs to Romanian Telecom Local Internet Registry. Not only that, the exact phone number and fax number of that service provider has also been identified, which in this case is +402 something something, right? So you can actually call up the ISP on that number and say that, oh, we are investigating a crime, we've received an abusive email that was sent from your server, and this is the IP address of the sender. Please tell us the exact identity of the person, the exact name and address of the person who sent that email. So without taking help of the ISP, we cannot get the name and address of the person. And how do you contact the ISP? On the right hand side column, the phone number and fax number have been mentioned. Not only that, if you scroll down further on the right hand side column, the exact physical address, the postal address has also been identified of the ISP. So this is, the ISP's address is City Gate, North Tower, Piața Presre Liberec, Sector 3, Bucharest, Romania. So literally if you go to that address, you can actually get in touch with that ISP. And there's a name of the contact person, which is George Nicolai. So all this information you can now hand over to the police in India, and the police in India has to contact the police in Bucharest and ask for their cooperation and help. And the Bucharest or the Romanian police has to contact this ISP and share this IP address with them, and the ISP can then look at their log files or the server records and identify the exact name and address of the person who sent that particular email to you. So that is how you can trace an email back to the sender. So up until now we have discussed two different ways in which you can find out somebody else's IP address. The first technique is you have to send an email to the victim. Either you can send a tracking image or a tracking file in that email. The second technique is the victim has to send an email to you. And you can analyze the email headers, identify the IP address of the sender, and then trace that IP address and find out the ISP, the city, and the country of the person who sent that email to you. Please remember, if the person has sent an email to you from a Gmail account, then only the Google server's IP address will be found in the email headers. So in that case, you need to lodge a police complaint in India. Indian police will contact Google India office and Google India can reveal the IP address of the sender to the Indian police. And then you can investigate the matter. The third technique in which you can find out somebody else's IP address is by simply sending a link to the victim. You can send a link to the victim using email, using Facebook private messaging, using Twitter, using Facebook wall or Facebook timeline, or using chat. No matter which communication medium you're using, you can send a special link to the victim in such a manner that as soon as the victim clicks on that link, the victim's IP address will be found out and will be sent to you. And this is really good because this link system or this technique that I'm going to show you will work even if the victim has a Gmail account or a Hotmail account. Because Gmail or Hotmail hides the IP address of the victim if you just send a tracking image or a tracking file. But here if you send a tracking link to the victim, then nobody can stop the victim's real IP address from being revealed. So the website address is iplogger.org. iplogger.org. Let me give a demonstration of this technique to all of you. iplogger.org. So I'll just close some websites. This is didtheyreadit.com, then readnotify.com, and then you have iplogger.org. So what does iplogger.org look like and how does it exactly work? Now imagine that there is some YouTube video that you want to share with your friend. Right? Because it's very normal for friends to share YouTube videos with each other. The important thing to remember is that as a criminal, you don't want the victim to become suspicious that you're trying to find out their IP address or something like that. Right? So instead of sending them something that will make them suspicious, it is very normal to share some video with your friend. So let us find some YouTube video that we can share with your friend, and as soon as your friend clicks on the link of that YouTube video, their IP address will get revealed. So maybe there is some Arnab Goswami spoof, some funny video, Bollywood Aam Aadmi Party or something like that. So I copy the link of that video, the YouTube link of the video. So let me just stop this video. You don't really want to watch it right now. So you copy the link of any video and you go to iplogger.org. iplogger.org. And in this space provided, where there is a button which says generate short IP logger URL. So next to this button, generate short IP logger URL, you paste the YouTube video URL. So if you notice, I have pasted that Bollywood Aam Aadmi Party funny video. That link has been pasted here. And I click on this button, generate short IP URL, IP logger URL. So if you notice now, it has created a special URL for you. So I can copy this URL. So let me show you this URL in a big notepad file. So this is the URL. It is iplogger.org/something 2ZT33 something. Right? Now I will send this URL to my friend. And as soon as my friend clicks on this URL, let us see what happens. So if you look at the screen, it's a blank tab. I click on this link. Let us see what gets displayed. The internet connection is a little bit slow. But if you notice, this Bollywood Aam Aadmi YouTube video starts getting displayed. So the victim thinks that you have sent a particular video to them. But in reality, you have sent them a log tracking link. And now if you want to find out that person, as soon as your friend has clicked on the link, once your friend has clicked on the link, if you want to find out their IP address, you just click on this view log button. And as soon as I click on view log, if you notice, the exact IP address has been displayed. And this is the IP address of the victim, which in this case is me myself. And my IP address has been displayed on the screen. As simple as that. Not only that, you can even find out the exact location of the person who clicked on the link. So I'm currently connected to the internet through the Talent Edge server, which is based out of Delhi, which is why the Delhi location is showing up. Even though right now I'm actually in the Bombay office. So by just sending a link to somebody, you can fool that person into clicking on that link, and then you can find out their IP address. Now some of you might be thinking that, oh, my friends are very smart. When they see a link which says iplogger.org, they will not click on the link. You're absolutely correct. So that is why you should not send this link directly to your friend. Instead, you should use any of the short URL websites like goo.gl or bit.ly. So goo.gl or bit.ly are URL shortening websites that will convert this URL into something shorter. So let me open up goo.gl in my browser, and I paste that link over here and click on shorten URL. And if you notice, it has created a short URL like this, which is goo.gl/something. So now if you send this link to your friend will not suspect that something is wrong. Because if you send iplogger.org to your friend, then if your friend is smart, they will not click on it. So let us see what happens when your friend clicks on this link, goo.gl something. So if you notice, the YouTube video, Bollywood Aam Aadmi, starts getting played. Right? So you actually want the victim to think that they're clicking on a link which is taking them to a YouTube video. But in reality, you are tracking the victim's IP address. So if you just refresh, if you notice now, it has again recorded the IP address of the person that clicked on the link. So if you notice, it recorded both the IP addresses of the Google server, which is in Mountain View, California, and also my IP address, which is in Delhi. So both the IP addresses were recorded this time because I clicked on the link through the Google server, which is goo.gl. So you were able to find out, the criminal was able to find out the victim's IP. At the same time, the victim does not get suspicious that they're clicking on some hacking website. So that is the beauty of goo.gl and iplogger being used together. Now, iplogger.org is a very interesting website. So if you notice, just to verify that it was indeed my correct IP address, right now also if you notice, iplogger has identified my correct IP address. So the same IP address was getting displayed when I tracked that link, which is 182.1.73 in Delhi. Now, not only can you actually create a short URL to create a tracking link using iplogger, you can also create a tracking photograph. just press this button which says generate invisible IP logger. So it will allow you to create this secret message or rather secret image, which is basically a tracking image which you can then copy paste into any kind of email, website or forum, and anybody who opens that email, website, forum, website, web page, whatever, or blog, their IP address will get recorded. So imagine a fourth technique of finding out somebody else's IP address would be that you create a blog or a website, and on your blog or website you just copy paste this secret image or hidden image, which is a small white colored image that nobody will be able to see. And as soon as they visit your web page, that hidden image will get displayed on their computer. And since that hidden tracking image is getting displayed on their computer, IP logger will record their IP address, which you can then see by just connecting to this IP logger website and clicking on this view log button. As simple as that. So that brings me to the fourth technique of finding out somebody else's IP address, which you can again use iplogger.org for. And just to demonstrate this, there's a very interesting website which is known as whatismyipaddress.com. So let me open up my browser and connect to whatismyipaddress.com and show you what gets displayed. Now, whenever you use your browser to connect to whatismyipaddress.com, this is what will get displayed on the screen. So if you notice, it has identified my computer's current IP address, which is 182.73.202.140. It has also identified my exact city. So even though I'm connecting via a company headquartered in Delhi, you can actually see that the city Mumbai, Maharashtra is showing up because that is my current location. So, and if you scroll down further, there's a nice looking map that has been displayed where the exact location of that IP address has also been identified in Mumbai. So if this website is able to find out my IP address and my location, as soon as I visit the website, what is stopping you from running the same script that this website is running? You run it on your website, invite your friends to visit your website, and as soon as your friends visit your website, you can find out their IP address. And how do you do that? Using iplogger.org. So iplogger.org allows you to create that hidden tracking image which you can put on the home page of your website, invite all your friends to visit your website, and as soon as they visit your website, secretly in the background, the hidden tracking image will record each and every visitor's IP address. Now, if you look at whatismyipaddress.com, not only does it tell you your own IP address, it also has a couple of other additional tools. First of all, there is something known as IP lookup. So if I click on IP lookup, it allows you to find out the exact location of any IP address. So if you notice, I have typed in an IP address in this space provided, and I click on lookup IP address button. And within a few seconds, it has identified a lot of information about this IP address. And if you remember, this is my computer's current IP address. So it has identified, obviously, it knows the decimal IP. It has converted that into the host name, which in this case is the same IP itself. The ISP is Bharti Airtel. And the type of connection is wireless broadband. And the country is India, state is Maharashtra, city is Mumbai. And the exact map of that IP address has also been displayed. So similarly, instead of this IP, you could type some other IP as well. So I'm just going to type some random IP address. Basically, you can just practice any kind of IP address, type it into this particular software, and it will try to find out the exact location of that IP address. So that is a lookup software for you. Practice it, play around with it. It's a lot of fun. There's another interesting software in whatismyipaddress.com which says trace email software. So it allows you to find out the email address, the source of an email that you've received. So all you have to do is copy the email headers of an email that you've received and paste them into this particular field, and then click on get source. So let us actually try this out. I copy this email header into this particular field, and I click on get source. Let's see whether it's able to get me the source of the email. So if you notice, it's kind of identified the source. The email was sent from this Amazon email server, and the source IP address is the following. And it has traced the...
And then it will ask you to choose a password. So there are a few different options available for the password. Option 1 is that you can require the user to enter a startup sysky password, which is at least 12 characters long. Right? So you can choose any password that the user wants. Second option is that the system will generate a password which can be stored in a pen drive. And the user must connect the pen drive to that system. Only then can the user log into their computer. And the option 3 is that the system will generate a password and store it locally on the system, and user doesn't need to do anything. So there are 3 options in terms of using sysky. So let me recap. We already have seen how easy it is to crack Windows login passwords. So then Microsoft finally got sick of all the security issues on Windows, so they introduced sysky. Sysky did 2 main things. Number 1, it encrypted the SAM file. Once you have encrypted the SAM file, it means that even if you use an offline technique by booting into another operating system and stealing the SAM file, it will not actually help because the SAM file is encrypted. Secondly, even if you know the password, even if you have cracked the password, the Windows login password, there is an additional password that you are required to enter for Windows to start. And that password is known as sysky password. And how to use that sysky password, there are 3 options. One option is that, okay, user just remembers the sysky password. Second is, Windows will generate a very long sysky password that the user can store in a pen drive and store the pen drive with them. So in such a scenario, if you are the criminal, and if I'm using a sysky password stored in my pen drive, you'll not only need to crack my Windows login password, you'll also need to physically steal my pen drive from me, which is pretty hard. And step number 3 is that, okay, the sysky password is just stored locally on the system. User doesn't need to remember anything. So what are the advantages of sysky? And why was it much better than the earlier times when there was no sysky? So first of all, a criminal cannot start Windows without somehow gaining access to the encryption key on the pen drive or without entering the sysky startup password, even if offline hacking tools have been used. Right? So that added an additional layer of security. Secondly, even if a criminal has cracked, changed or reset the Windows login password using offline techniques, they will still not be able to log in since they will be asked for the sysky password. Again, second layer of security. The third advantage is that sysky encrypted the SAM file, which made it much harder for criminals to use brute force attacks or rainbow tables attacks to crack the password. So sysky was much better than times before sysky. However, some hackers have found some loopholes in sysky as well. So there's a very good tutorial which I like to recommend to all of you. The website address where you can find this tutorial of how to crack sysky password using Ubuntu, BK Hive and SamDump2 is available at this website, epyxforensics.com. I repeat, epyxforensics.com/node/34. epyxforensics.com/node/34. There's another software called SAM Inside. SAM Inside, which basically allows you to crack the Windows password plus the syskey password as well. I have tried it a few times. It's never worked for me. But on their website and on various hacking forums, they keep claiming that this software works. So if it works for you, please try it out. Maybe it will work for you. It did not work for me. So all along we have been discussing various ways in which you can crack the Windows login password. However, it's very important to kind of understand, why do you want to even crack the Windows login password? What is the objective? If your objective is to steal data from your friend's computer, then why are you even worried about cracking his password? If the objective is to crack the password, then yes, you should crack the password. But if the objective of the criminal is to simply steal data from the victim's computer, then you don't need to crack the password. Because there's a technique called USB hacking or CD hacking, where you can take Linux distributions like Knoppix and Ubuntu, and you can copy them onto a CD or a pen drive. So you take Linux distributions like Knoppix or Ubuntu, you copy it onto a CD or install it on a pen drive, go to the victim's computer, plug the pen drive or put the CD in, go to the BIOS, change the boot sequence, and enable boot from CD-ROM. So now what will happen is, instead of Windows booting, you will boot into Ubuntu or Knoppix. And then you can just mount the C drive, copy whatever data you want, and steal the data. As simple as that. Unless the victim has enabled disk encryption, this USB and CD hacking will work. And you don't need to even worry about trying to crack the Windows login passwords. So as you can clearly see, there are a variety of different ways in which your Windows computer is vulnerable. Somebody can come in and execute offline attacks. Somebody can crack even the syskey password. Somebody can even execute USB hacking and CD hacking to steal your data. So what all do you need to do to protect yourself? How do you actually protect Windows? How do you actually protect the data that you have on your Windows machine? So in this slide, I like to talk a little bit about the things that you can do to protect Windows. First of all, you should disable boot from external drives by changing the BIOS settings. However, that doesn't protect the criminal from physically opening your CPU and connecting the hard drive to some other system and then performing the attack, or cracking the BIOS password or resetting the BIOS settings. But still you should do it. Secondly, you should enable syskey on your computer. And thirdly, you should encrypt your hard drive. BitLocker disk or drive encryption is a security feature that comes with Windows Vista onwards that protects your data, passwords and files against offline attacks. And it can be enabled by simply going into the control panel of your computer, go into system and security, and then enable BitLocker drive encryption. So it's a very simple solution, but it ensures that it ensures that all the offline attacks will not work. It also ensures that CD hacking, pen drive hacking will no longer work. So we have discussed a wide variety of different attacks that you can execute to find out somebody else's Windows login password. Let us now also discuss some privilege escalation attacks. What is privilege escalation? Privilege escalation is a type of attack where you already have an account on a system, like a regular normal user account. Like typically in your college, you're given a particular account, but it's a regular user account. It's not an admin account. So privilege escalation is a technique that allows you to convert an account which is a normal account into an admin account. So that is what privilege escalation is all about. How do you convert a regular account into an admin account? So that you have full privileges, full access to everything on that system. So there used to be a very interesting attack known as sticky keys attack, which I like to actually talk a little bit about at this stage. Sticky keys attack. Sticky keys is actually a special feature that is built into Windows for the benefit of people with physical disabilities. It allows physically disabled people to use the function keys like Shift, Control, Alt, or the Windows key by pressing it after pressing the other key, instead of pressing both the keys simultaneously. So usually when you're using Control and Control A, Control F or whatever, you need to press both the keys together. But physically disabled people are not able to do that. So for the benefit of people with physical disabilities, what Windows does is that there's a feature called sticky keys that allows them to press Control and then after that press something else, or Shift and after that press something else. It is possible to activate the sticky keys feature by pressing the Shift key 5 times when you reach the Windows login screen. When you activate the sticky keys, then the following exe file normally gets executed. So whenever you try to activate sticky keys by pressing the Shift key 5 times at the Windows login screen, then Windows executes this special file called sethc.exe. And this file is at windows/system32/sethc.exe. Now if you were to replace the above file with the cmd.exe file, then what will happen? Because next time when you are at the Windows login prompt, if you press the Shift key 5 times, then since you have replaced the sethc.exe file with command.exe file, the command.exe file gets executed. And it gets executed with admin rights. So that is what the sticky keys attack is all about. So what exactly do you do in this attack? Right? So let's actually go through the step-by-step process that you need to follow in the sticky keys attack. First of all, you got to create a bootable USB or pen drive of Windows PE or Windows RE. Once Windows PE or Windows RE boots, you need to access the command line prompt, type the command to replace the sticky keys file with the command line file, and the command that you got to type is copy c drive/windows/system32/cmd.exe followed by c drive/windows/system32/sethc.exe. So you're basically replacing the sticky keys.exe file with the command line.exe file. Now you got to restart the computer, and when you reach the login prompt, you got to press Shift 5 times to enable sticky keys. Immediately the command line prompt will start. And once the command line prompt starts, you have admin rights. So you can actually type the following command to change the password of any of the existing users. And the command is net space user space username followed by the new password followed by space/add. It does not work on each and every version of Windows, but you can always try it out. So that was the first example of a privilege escalation attack that is possible on a Windows machine. There's another attack called hidden admin account attack. Hidden admin account attack. In this attack, it is possible to create a new hidden admin account on a Windows machine by simply following the below procedure. Step number 1 is you boot into Windows PE or RE and go to the command line prompt and type the following command. Net user followed by the username, some new username, followed by some password, followed by /add. So if you look at the screenshot, that's the demonstration. I've shown you the screenshot of what exactly will happen. Now you got to go to the following Windows registry entry. Let's wait for that to get displayed. So go to the following Windows registry entry, and there will be a sub key called special accounts and user list. If they don't exist, then you got to create them. Select the user list sub key in the left column and right click anywhere in the right column and select new dword value. The name of the dword value should be username of the hidden account that you wish to create. So in this case it was Ankit hidden, and set its value to 0. This makes the account hidden and it will not appear on the login screen when Windows boots. And to log into the hidden admin account, when you reach the login screen of Windows, just press Ctrl-Alt-Delete and then manually enter the username and password of the hidden account, and you'll be able to then log in as the administrator. As simple as that. Again, this privilege escalation attack does not work on each and every version of Windows. Now, some of the new versions of Windows come with biometric, recognition of fingerprint, passwords, and so on. So there is a software called Windows Password Recovery 7.0 that allows you to actually even bypass or crack the fingerprint readers or the biometric passwords that have been enabled in some of the new versions of Windows. Windows 8 actually launched or introduced a new type of password mechanism called picture passwords. So what exactly are picture passwords? So picture passwords basically shows you a password on the login screen, and you gotta, either using your finger or using your mouse, you gotta tap or press different portions of the picture or image in a particular pattern or order, and that becomes your password. But in reality, such a picture password is actually very vulnerable to brute force attacks, because in most pictures there are very few different points where you can actually remember and where you can actually press your password. So I would recommend not using picture passwords at all. Then you have something called LSA secrets, which I'm just going to skip. And then let's quickly move on to SHA-1 and SHA-2 encoding. So early on, I think in the previous lecture, we had actually seen MD5 encoding. And MD5 encoding used to be really powerful and really popular at some point of time, and then it got cracked. And the latest form of encoding nowadays is SHA-1 and SHA-2 encoding. SHA stands for Secure Hash Algorithm, and it was developed by the US government. It is actually much more secure than MD5 hash. And SHA-2 is the latest version of SHA, which is actually very difficult to crack. However, as you can predict, even SHA-1 and SHA-2 has been cracked. There's a very interesting website which I like to recommend to all of you, and it is called webutils.pl. webutils.pl, where you can crack pretty much any version of SHA. This website is creating a rainbow table for SHA cracking. So very soon all kinds of SHA and SHA-2 hashes would be cracked in a matter of a few seconds using this website. There's another website called SHA2decrypt.com. SHA2decrypt.com, which pretty much does the same thing. It allows you to actually crack any kind of SHA-1 and SHA-2 encryption. Yet another website which I like to share with all of you is this website called crackstation.net. Crackstation.net. This website allows you to upload a hash, which could be MD5, SHA, Whirlpool, NTLM, and other popular hashes, and it will try to crack the hash and display the output for you. Yet another software which allows you to crack various hash algorithms is this software called MD5 Deep. It actually does not allow you to crack the password, but it actually computes the hash for various files that you might have. So if you remember, I had discussed something called hash checksums, which basically ensure that the file that you have downloaded is authentic or not. So MD5 Deep allows you to do that. Not only MD5, but also SHA1, SHA2, Tiger and Whirlpool hashes can be calculated by this particular software. So with that, we actually come to the end of Windows login password cracking. And I'd like to quickly move on to the next topic, or the next type of password that criminals like to crack on the internet. And this technique is actually, or this type of password is something known as network passwords. So what do I mean by network passwords? Network passwords are basically any kind of password that you type on a network. So it could be an FTP password, it could be an HTTP password, it could be an SQL password, and corporate email account password, and so on. So any kind of network password can actually be cracked very easily using brute force password cracking tools. And one of the oldest and most popular brute force password cracking tools is a software called Brutus. And Brutus is available as a free download on the internet. And what Brutus does is, it will one by one try out all possible permutations and combinations of the keyboard as the victim's password. And sooner or later, the correct password is arrived at and is displayed as output. All you have to do is select the victim IP address, select the victim port number, enter the username of the victim, and also provide a dictionary file to Brutus. A dictionary file will have all the different characters that you want to use when you're creating different permutations, combinations of passwords. But to be honest, Brutus is very slow, and it no longer does as good a job as it used to do. And computing power has increased, lengths of passwords has also increased with time, which led to the introduction of this brilliant brute force password cracking tool called THC Hydra. THC Hydra. THC Hydra is a parallelized login cracker for various protocols or various types of network passwords like FTP, HTTP, POP, SQL, Oracle, Telnet, and so on. And what is unique about THC Hydra is that it runs multiple versions or multiple processes of the software parallelly. And since they are running parallelly, the amount of time this software will overall take to crack the victim's password is drastically reduced. So that's the benefit, that's the advantage of THC Hydra. Another similar software that has drastically managed to reduce the amount of time brute force password cracking takes is this software called Medusa. Medusa is a parallel network login auditor, and it essentially has been created to test the security of passwords, but actually it's a password cracking tool. So you had Brutus, which is the first generation of brute force password cracking tools. But then after a while it became too slow. Then the second generation of password cracking tools were tools like THC Hydra and Medusa, which ran parallel versions of itself, so that it reduced the amount of time it took overall to crack the victim's password. The third generation, or the latest generation of password cracking tools, or brute force password cracking tools, is something known as distributed network attack tools. Distributed network attack tools. It is a technique that cracks the password of the victim by using unused and underutilized processing power of all the computers on the network. So imagine that in your LAN, you have 50 different computers. Now wouldn't it be great if there was a way to use the processing power available on all those 50 computers simultaneously to crack the victim's password? So if one computer is taking, say, 50 hours to crack a password, then technically, if you use 50 computers to crack the same password, it should take 1 hour, right? Because if one computer takes 50 hours, 50 computers with the same processing power running simultaneously should only take 1 hour to crack the same password. So that is what a distributed network attack is all about. And Elcomsoft, the Russian website that we had discussed earlier, actually allows you to download this software called LCOMSoft Distributed Password Recovery Tool that does exactly that for you. How does it work? It basically has two parts. It has a server part and then it has a client part. So the server part of the DNA attack tool, which is the LCOMSoft DNA attack tool, has to be installed on your central server of your LAN. It could be your computer, let's say. And the clients have to be installed on all the other computers of your LAN. The server will then create smaller jobs of the password cracking process and will distribute the smaller jobs across all the clients in your LAN. The clients will run in the background. They do not disturb regular applications, regular utilization of the computer. It only uses the underutilized processing power of each computer. And such a distributed attack drastically, tremendously reduces the amount of time it takes to crack the victim's password. And LCOMSoft actually provides support for up to 2,500 clients simultaneously attacking the same victim. But nothing works. I am very disappointed. I leave your room and I return to my room. I then attend the AFCH course and figure out how to crack somebody else's Windows login password. So that is the scenario that I'm talking about. If you want to crack somebody else's Windows login password, what are the steps that you need to execute? Step number 1. You need to download a software called OpCrack. OpCrack is around, I think, 500 or 600 MB. And when you download OpCrack, the extension of the file is .iso. Now, .iso files are actually quite special, because any file that is .iso file extension, it basically means that you can copy it onto a CD or a pen drive, and that CD or that pen drive will become bootable. So step number 1 is you download OpCrack. It's a 600 MB download, .iso file extension, and you copy it to a CD and make a bootable CD out of it. And if you have never created a bootable CD, there's actually a couple of tools available. There's a software called Nero that allows you to create a bootable CD using a .iso file. So just download OpCrack, which is a .iso file, 600 MB in size. Using the Nero software, you copy it onto a bootable CD. Sorry, copy it onto a CD and the CD will become bootable. So step number 1 is create bootable CD of OpCrack. Step number 2 is that you need to break into the victim's room, switch on computer, and enter BIOS. What is the BIOS? If you have forgotten what the BIOS is, basically as soon as the computer boots, even before Windows starts, there will be a message on the screen which will ask you press F1, F10 or something to enter the BIOS. So you press that so that you can enter the BIOS. And inside the BIOS, you got to look for something known as boot sequence. Boot sequence. The boot sequence basically decides which drive your computer is going to boot from. By default, your computer boots from C drive, which is where Windows is installed. But you don't want your computer to boot from C drive. Actually, you want it to boot from some other drive, which in this case is D drive. So you need to enter the boot sequence and change the boot sequence so that instead of C drive coming before D drive, you do the reverse of it. So D drive should come before C drive. So essentially what you're trying to do is that, see, normally normally your computer boots from C drive, that is Windows. But the problem is the moment Windows will boot, the SAM file gets locked and you as a regular user cannot access a SAM file and you cannot steal data from it. So instead what you're trying to do is, in step 1 you created a bootable CD of opcrack. Step 2 you're changing the BIOS settings of the victim's computer so that the boot sequence of that BIOS says that the computer should first try booting from D drive, which is opcrack, and then if that fails, then it should try booting from C drive. Right? So you've changed the boot sequence so that Windows will not start, and instead the opcrack operating system or the opcrack software is what will start instead of Windows. Now step number 3 is you save the BIOS changes that you made and restart computer. Insert the CD into the CD tray. So that's pretty straightforward. Just save whatever changes you have made in the BIOS, restart the computer, make sure that the CD is already inside the CD tray. Now what will happen is, Windows will not boot. And instead opcrack will boot. And just follow whatever instructions are there on the screen. Keep pressing next, next, or yes, yes, or whatever. And 35 or 40 minutes later, with a 60 to 70% success rate, it will be able to crack all Windows login passwords. As simple as that. So I'll quickly recap this. This is an offline attack, which means Windows should not run. And why are we doing an offline attack? Because you are not an administrator, you are a criminal. And you are trying to actually steal or gain access to your friend's computer. So step number 1 is that you prepare the alternate booting mechanism. And the alternate booting mechanism is opcrack. So opcrack is a .iso file software. It's basically a password cracking tool that will crack the SAM file password. And it's a 600 MB download, so you download it and you copy it onto a CD or a pen drive. Using Nero software, you create a bootable CD so that you can boot from it. Step number 2 is that you switch on the victim's computer, enter the BIOS. Do not let Windows boot. Enter the BIOS, and inside the BIOS look for the boot sequence setting. And normally the boot sequence will be try booting from C drive first and then move on to D drive. So you got to reverse that because you don't want Windows to boot. So it should first be D drive, and if that doesn't work, then go to C drive. Step number 3 is you save the BIOS, you restart the computer, you insert the CD into the CD tray, because what you're trying to do is that make sure that Windows does not boot and instead opcrack boots. Step number 4, Windows actually does not boot. Opcrack will boot. There'll be instructions on the screen. Keep pressing yes, no, yes, or next, or whatever. And then you go ahead and basically keep following the instructions, wait for 35-40 minutes, and with a 60-70% success rate, opcrack will crack the Windows login password for you and will display the password as the output. As simple as that. The problem with this technique is the fact that it takes 35-40 minutes and you have to be in front of the victim's computer for the entire duration. So what if your friend comes back and catches you red-handed in the act? That would be a very, very embarrassing and difficult situation, an uncomfortable situation to be in. So instead, I would say that don't use opcrack. And instead, let me tell you about another very interesting software that is even better than opcrack. So I just wasted so much time because I could have just skipped opcrack and directly I could have told you about the better software. So the better software is actually a software called PC Login Now. PC Login Now. And instead of 600 MB, I think it's only around 6 or 7 MB. So it won't take a very long time for you to download on the slow internet speeds in India. So download PC Login Now. It's around 6 or 7 MB in size. The extension of the file is .iso. You create a bootable CD of that PC Login Now software using Nero. You break into the victim's computer, switch on the computer, enter the BIOS, change the boot sequence so that D drive comes before C drive. Step 3 is also the same, save BIOS, restart PC, insert CD. Step number 4 is kind of the same except that, again, Windows will not boot, opcrack, instead of opcrack it will obviously be PC Login Now. So PC Login Now boots and it takes around 5 or 6 minutes instead of 35-40 minutes. And again with a 60-70% success rate, it will crack the Windows login password. Actually, it does not crack the Windows login password. It corrupts the Windows login password or it corrupts the SAM file. So opcrack will actually crack the Windows login password and display the password on the screen. But it takes 35-40 minutes to do that, which means that you could actually get caught. The alternate is PC Login Now. It takes 5 or 6 minutes only. It does not crack the password and display it on the screen, so it does not tell you what the password is. Instead, it corrupts the password file, it corrupts the SAM file completely. Which essentially means that you could just restart the computer, and when Windows asks for the password, you can type any password of your choice and it will get accepted. Because the SAM file has been corrupted, the SAM file has been, the password has been deleted or overwritten or whatever you want to call it, and it gives you access to the victim's computer. But the problem with this technique is, when your friend comes back, his original password will no longer work. So he will know that there is something wrong that has happened on his machine. So there are two main types of offline attacks. One is attack that tries to crack the password for you and display the password to you, but it takes 35-40 minutes, plus there is no 100% guarantee. PC Login Now takes only 5 or 6 minutes. It does not crack the password, it does not tell you the password, but it gives you access to the victim's computer by corrupting the SAM file. Advantage is 5-6 minutes only and your job is done. So depending on what your objectives are, if your objective is to find out your friend's password, then opcrack is better. If your objective is to steal data from your friend's computer, then this one is much better. So that's how you can use an offline attack to basically steal or gain access to the victim's computer. The offline attacks work because since Windows is not starting, you're booting into another operating system. As a result, your SAM file is still accessible and you're able to steal data from it, you're able to corrupt it and so on. So this is what opcrack, the website, looks like. If you look at the screen carefully, it basically uses rainbow tables to kind of run the whole attack. So it's possible for you to download rainbow tables of opcrack from the opcrack website. If you notice, my Windows has stopped responding, so I'll have to wait for a few seconds for Windows to kind of stabilize again, after which I will continue with the lecture today. So I'm trying to kind of just fix it. As you know, this happens in Windows from time to time. You can't really do much about it. It's still trying to kind of fix itself. if it takes much longer, I may just restart the computer. Oh, there you go. I think it's stabilized again. So let me switch to my PowerPoint slides again. So this is what the Opcrack website looks like. If you look at the screen, it essentially uses rainbow tables, so you can download rainbow tables from their website, which will increase the speed of the attack if you want to. There's another very interesting software called Offline NT Password and Registry Editor. I repeat, Offline NT Password and Registry Editor, or in short, it is often known as NT Password. NT Password. So you can use this to reset